It started about a year ago on an ordinary night. I had just gotten home from work, exhausted. I lived alone in a small one-bedroom house in a quiet neighborhood. It wasn't much, but it was all I had. I locked the front door behind me, threw my keys on the counter, and made my way to the bathroom to shower. It was just past midnight. That's when I heard it, footsteps coming from my living room. I froze, my heart pounded in my chest, my brain scrambled for an explanation. Maybe I left the TV on? Maybe the house was settling? Then I heard it again, closer. I turned off the bathroom light, pressing my back against the cold tile wall. My phone was still in the bedroom. No weapon, nothing to defend myself with. Just me, a locked door, and whoever, or whatever, was in my house. I held my breath. The footsteps stopped, right outside the bathroom door. I could hear breathing, slow, deliberate. I reached for the doorknob, ready to fight or run, but before I could do anything, knock knock. 2 slow, heavy knocks. Then, in the most normal, casual voice in the world, it said, "I know you're in there." I wanted to scream, to run, but I couldn't move. 2 minutes later, I heard footsteps walking away. I stayed there for what felt like hours. When I finally got the courage to open the door, my house was empty. The front door was locked. The windows were locked. Nothing was missing. But on my kitchen counter, where I had thrown my keys, was a single muddy footprint, and I never found out whose it was. This happened when I was 16, and I still think about it every single day. It was a quiet evening. My mom and I were home alone. Dad was working late, and my little brother was at a friend's house. She was in the kitchen washing dishes while I sat in the living room, scrolling through my phone. At some point, I looked up and saw her walking down the hallway toward her bedroom. She didn't say anything, just moved past quickly. I figured she was grabbing something and didn't think much of it. A few minutes later, her voice called from the kitchen. "Can you grab the laundry from the dryer?" I blinked. "Wait, what?" Annoyingly, she said, "The laundry. I've been talking to you for the last 5 minutes." My stomach dropped. Slowly, heart pounding, I turned my head. The kitchen was to my left. The hallway, where I had just seen her walk into the bedroom, was on the right. I stood up, hands clammy, legs weak, and stepped into the kitchen. She was still there at the sink, washing dishes. She looked up, frowning. "What's with you?" My throat was dry. "You were just in the hallway?" She said, "What?" "No, I've been in here the whole time." I snapped my head toward the bedroom. The door was open. I could feel something in there watching. Then, before I could process anything, the front door opened, and my mom walked in. She was carrying groceries, looking exhausted. "Sorry I took so long. Traffic was awful." I turned back to the kitchen. It was empty. The sink was dry. No dishes. No water running. I don't remember much after that. Just my body going cold, my head spinning, and my real mom looking at me, concerned as I backed away. I never told her what happened. I thought maybe I was hallucinating. But I know I wasn't. When Max went missing, I was devastated. He had been my dog for 6 years, loyal, loving, and always by my side. One night, I let him out into the backyard like I always did, but when I called him back in, he was gone. Just vanished. I searched for hours, put up flyers, even drove around the neighborhood calling his name. Nothing. A week passed and I had almost given up hope. Then one night I heard scratching at the front door. I opened it, and there he was. Max sitting there, staring up at me with those familiar brown eyes. His fur was a little dirty, his paws muddy, but otherwise he looked fine. I hugged him, relief washing over me. I was so happy to have him back. For the first few days, everything seemed normal. He ate, slept, and followed me around like always. But then, things started to feel off. He was too quiet. Max had always been a noisy dog, barking at squirrels and whining when he wanted attention. But now he barely made a sound. And then, the real moment that made my stomach drop. One evening, I casually said, "Max, sit." He sat immediately. I froze. I had never taught him that. Heart pounding, I whispered, "Roll over." Max rolled over without hesitation. I could barely breathe. My hands started shaking. My real Max didn't know tricks. I had never trained him. So what the hell was sitting in my house? Slowly I stood up, backing away. Max, or whatever it was, just sat there staring. Too still, too expectant. And then it smiled. Not a dog smile. Not a happy pant. A wide human grin. I reacted on instinct. I grabbed the nearest object, a chair, and shoved it toward him. He didn't growl. Didn't bark. Just tilted his head. That was enough for me. I kicked it as hard as I could and bolted for the door, shoving it outside and slamming it shut. Through the window, I watched as it stood up on all fours, shaking itself off. It looked back at me, still smiling, then walked away into the night. I called 911, voice shaking, trying to explain that something had pretended to be my dog. When the cops arrived, there was no sign of it. No footprints. No scratches on the door. Nothing. They thought I was crazy. 3 days later, the smell hit me. I followed it to my backyard. My hands were trembling as I grabbed a shovel and started digging. And then I found him. My real Max, dead, buried, decomposing. My world turned upside down. Who could have done this to him without me knowing in my backyard? He had been there the whole time. So what the hell had I let into my house? Everything was normal. Until my 5th birthday. I was playing in the backyard when I saw movement near the trees. A boy my age standing just at the edge of the shadows watching me. Something about him felt wrong, like he wasn't supposed to be there. I ran inside, screaming for my mom, but when we checked, he was gone. It happened again when I was 10. I had spent the night at a friend's house. When I got home the next morning, my mom was furious. "Where were you last night?" I stared at her, confused. "At Jake's house, you dropped me off." Her face went pale. "Then who was in your room?" She told me that around midnight she had checked on me, just like she always did. And she had seen me lying in bed, fast asleep. Only I wasn't there. After that, the sightings became more frequent. A neighbor swore she saw me walking outside at night. My father once found me standing in the hallway at 2 a.m., staring at his bedroom door. But when he turned on the light, my bed was full. I had never moved. And then, when I was 17, I saw him again. I woke up in the middle of the night. The house was silent, but something felt off. Rolling onto my side, I faced my bedroom door. It was open. And standing in the dim hallway light was me. Same face. Same clothes. Same vacant expression. He didn't move, didn't blink. Just watched. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. My body wouldn't move, my breath caught in my throat. Then slowly he smiled. A creeping, wrong smile. He lifted a hand and beckoned. I don't remember what happened next. Just my father bursting in, finding me curled in the corner, shaking uncontrollably. After that, we moved out. It never happened again, and my parents never spoke about it again. But I still get paranoid whenever I see my own reflection. Because back then, he looked exactly like me. It happened 3 years ago. I was living alone in a small apartment, working late shifts, barely getting any sleep. I thought the exhaustion was getting to me. I thought I was just seeing things. The first time it was small. I came home from work, kicked off my shoes, and walked past the bathroom. The door was slightly open, and in the mirror, I caught a glimpse of something moving. I stopped. It was me. Only I hadn't stopped moving. My reflection had taken a half step more than I had. I stared at it, then didn't pay much attention to it. Sleep deprivation does weird things to the brain. I took a deep breath, shook my head, and went to bed. But it got worse. A week later, I came home early and heard something from my bedroom. Shuffling, quiet breathing. My stomach dropped. I knew I had locked the door when I left. I grabbed the heaviest thing I could find, a lamp for the record, and crept down the hall. The door was open, and sitting on the edge of my bed was me. Same clothes, same posture. Head tilted slightly as if it had been waiting for me. I can't even describe the feeling that came over me. It wasn't fear, not at first. It was something deeper. I was looking at something that should not exist. It smiled. I ran. I don't remember grabbing my keys, don't remember locking the door behind me. I just remember running down the stairs, out into the street, gasping for breath. I stayed at a friend's place that night. When I finally worked up the courage to go back the next morning, everything was normal. I wasn't able to sleep for a very long time, as I feared he was still in my house somewhere. But I kept telling myself that it wasn't real. How it can be?